All right, good afternoon and welcome to the Henry Schein Dental Academy webinar series. My name is Adam, Marketing Specialist, and I will be your moderator. I hope everyone had a happy new year and safe and relaxing holiday season. We are excited to welcome Christi Billquist as our speaker tonight, as she will discuss 3 steps to increasing PPO insurance reimbursements this year. Christi is the Director of Operations for Unitas Dental. Before we get started, we have a few reminders for you. At any point during tonight's webinar, we encourage your participation through the chat and Q&A features. Please type any questions you might have into the Q&A section of your control panel, and we will answer them live at the end of the presentation. Henry Schein is not offering CE credit for viewing or attending this presentation live or on demand. And this webinar is sponsored by Henry Schein's Dental Business Institute, as well as Unitas Dental. Christi, welcome. Thanks for being with us tonight. We are all looking forward to your presentation.
It's a pleasure to be here. I hope that this is time well spent for all of us this evening, and I appreciate everyone giving of your time and tuning in, and hopefully you learn something. So like Adam said, we're going to go over 3 steps to increasing PPO reimbursements in the coming year. A little bit about me. I am the Director of Operations here at Unitas Dental. We're located in sunny Arizona, and I've been here since 2012 and have seen the insurance landscape change considerably in the past 8.5 years. So we've learned a lot about PPOs and how complicated that can be, as you're well aware. So we're happy to share our knowledge and help you increase your PPO revenue. What is Unitas? We've been in practice for over 9 years. So we're one of the first in the industry. We've come a long way as far as just people knowing that what we do is possible, let alone that we're a great resource to help negotiate your PPO revenue and get the most that you can. We've worked with thousands of dentists in all 50 states. Currently, we have about 900 dental offices that are our clients. And we're located, like I said, in Mesa, Arizona, and we have over 45 insurance experts that work with us. So that's just a little bit about Unitas. So the 3 things that we're going to cover tonight are, first of all, we're going to determine when your UCRs should be raised and how to price them appropriately. Understand the importance of billing your UCR versus your PPO reimbursement or the fee schedule allowance, and why it affects your practice, and then discover how PPO leasing arrangements may be hurting your reimbursements and steps that you can take to improve them. So let's get started. And like Adam said, if you have questions, please jot them down at the end. You're going to have the opportunity to ask questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. So when should your UCRs be raised, and why you should price them competitively? So it's good to annually review your office fees. So when we say UCRs, some people say, what does that mean? I think it really depends what part you are in the country of how you refer to your office fees. Just for the sake of vocabulary, so we're all on the same page. If I say UCRs, that's the same as office fees. I avoid using the word fee schedule, just because when I say fee schedule, that tends to refer to what the insurance companies are paying. So UCRs are office fees. So they should be evaluated annually. And a good time to do that is at the end or beginning of each year and make those changes. And then it's really critical that you update the changes in your practice management software. So what you want to check is to make sure that you're not leaving any money on the table. And I know this sounds crazy, but when we do an analysis for practices coming on service with us, it's really common for us to find a handful of codes where their UCR is actually lower than what some of the insurance companies are willing to pay. So you always want to just do a check with your PPO fee schedules against your UCR to make sure that there's a healthy gap between what you're charging and what the PPOs are willing to pay you. So what resources can you use to know where to set your UCRs? So a great resource is the Henry Schein Practice Analysis. This is based on collected data specific to your geographic area, and they give you percentiles so that you can set them where you feel comfortable, but it also just gives you a target of where to start. And then a generic guide that I like to give, if you are with Delta PPO, your fee should be at least double that PPO fee schedule. We have found when we analyze practices discounts that they're taking with their PPOs that a lot of times Delta reimbursement is at about 50% of their office fee. So that's also a good generic guide to use, is to double whatever that PPO fee is. And of course, you want to set them where you feel comfortable, but you also want to make sure that they're nice and competitive. So that asks the question, how high should I go? So you should view your fees as a starting point for discounts. So I don't know how many of you shop at Kohl's, if you have Kohl's where you're at, but I guarantee you nobody ever goes into that store expecting to pay what's on the price tag for a shirt. It's probably on sale, number one, and then you've got maybe some Kohl's cash or a discount coupon or something. So a shirt that's priced at $34, they already know they're never going to sell that shirt for $34. So it's priced there, taking into account all the discounts that are going to be applied. So that's sort of how you have to think about your UCR, is that just like, buying a new vehicle at the lot, you're not going to ever pay the sticker price. That's just telling you where the discount begins. So that's how you need to think of it with your office fees, is again, you want to set them where you feel comfortable, but also know that you're setting your office fee at where the discount begins. So a lot of anxiety comes with, what about my cash paying patients? So this is my thought process on cash patients. So you have to kind of have an overview understanding of what your patient base really is. If your practice is mainly PPO, then that's your audience, and that's what you need to target your fees to, which is an inflated amount that is going to reflect your cost before discounts. If you are very heavy cash patients, then obviously you want to be a little bit more careful in raising your UCRs. But at the same time, if your fees are really, really low, and that's why you're attracting cash patients, then maybe you're working more for less. So you should kind of evaluate if that's really working for you. But it does give some practices anxiety about, oh, what about my cash patients, and raising my UCR or my office fee is going to make them go somewhere else. So sure, they might shop around on a cash price, but just keep in mind that setting your UCR, if you're heavy PPO, needs to be sending a message to the PPOs of what your cost is. So a good way to work with those cash paying patients is to offer an in-house discount plan or an in-house membership plan. So the difference is a discount plan is a straight discount off of your UCR. So you might say, we'll give a 20% discount if we implement an in-house discount plan off of our UCR or our office fee. A membership plan, if it's allowed in your state, is where they pay maybe $300 and is an annual fee. And what they're going to get is some cleanings and exams, x-rays, and then a percentage off of any preventative that they might need. So those are two really, really good options for your uninsured patients to attract those patients and retain them, because those are great patients to have, because you don't run into downcoding or submitting claims or anything like that. So if you have any anxiety about raising your fees and you don't have an in-house discount plan or a membership plan, that's a really great way to go. And you want to make sure that you do it, set up through some kind of program so that it's compliant both with your state regulations and with your insurance contracts. So how does my UCR affect the whole industry? So most insurance companies claim that they set their fee schedules based on data from Fair Health or something similar. So this data is collected from the UCRs dentists submit on their claims. So if all dentists in an area submit your UCR as $100 for a procedure and a PPO is reimbursed only $30, they can't justify that large of a discount. However, if some dentists are saying my cost is $20, all the way up to $100, they may be able to claim that $30 is a fair reimbursement because they're looking at when you're submitting your UCR, you're saying, this is my cost of doing business. And so if you're submitting a low fee or the PPO fee schedule fee, then all that's doing is allowing them to justify keeping their rates lower. So this is something where it's a group collective effort for everyone in your area to make sure that the fees are being submitted to insurance are really a reflection of your cost of doing business, because your UCRs help set the market fee and reporting your cost, not just what you're willing to get reimbursed. And we've even had a rep from Delta tell us that, when we've talked about how everyone complains about Delta's fees, and they say, well, a lot of it's based on the fees people submit. And a lot of times, if they're submitting low fees, then that's what we get our data from and on where we set our fees. So, it's a collective effort of having nice, healthy UCRs helps the industry, and especially those zip code based fee schedules in your area, like MetLife, Delta PPO, those are all very standardized fee schedules that most everyone is on the same one. So if rising tides raises all ships. So if everybody submits higher UCRs, then that helps the whole industry. Okay, so this is another common anxiety that we get is, won't high fees make my write-offs higher? So again, this is where vocabulary is really important. So knowing that the difference between a write-off and adjustment is important. Increasing your office fees will result in higher adjustments. Keep in mind that adjustments are not write-offs. A write-off is revenue that you were expected to receive but did not. So that's if somebody came in and got a crown and their insurance paid 50% and they were supposed to pay the other 50% and they never paid you. Then that's a genuine write-off because you were supposed to receive that other 50% and you never did. So adjustments are the difference between your office fees and the rate you agreed to accept from a PPO. So if your office fee is $100, but your Delta fee schedule says $70, then that $30 is an adjustment. It's not a write-off because you were never going to get that $30 anyway. You had already contracted with Delta that you were going to accept the $70. So when people use that as, kind of a crutch to say, I don't want to raise my office fees because my insurance fees are probably going to stay kind of the same, like right when you raise them, they're going to be the same. So that gap is going to be bigger, but it's a phantom gap. It doesn't really mean anything. So don't let that non-number be a reason that you don't raise your office fees because it's inconsequential. It might give you some heartburn to see those discounts that you're taking by being in network, but it shouldn't be a reason that you keep your fees low. Okay, so how does raising my UCRs help in negotiating fees with PPOs? So first of all, yes, it is possible with several PPOs to negotiate your fees. So some insurance companies take into consideration what your UCR is, and they set fees and discounts based on your UCR. In some cases, the higher the UCR, the higher the fees. Likewise, if you have low fees, especially fees that are at or below PPO fee schedules, PPOs feel that you're being adequately or even overcompensated. So again, that helps you going into negotiations to have some gap between what you're charging and what they're paying you. Because obviously, if there isn't much of a gap there, they expect you to take a discount. That's the perk of being an in-network provider is that discount. So they expect that. So make sure that if you're going to go into negotiations, that you've done your due diligence and that there is enough gap between your UCR and what the insurance company is paying you. Okay, so now it's time for a poll question. So Adam is going to set this ability up for you to vote or let us know here. Has your practice changed your office fees in the last 6 months? So just curious if you came back from COVID and decided to change your fees, or if it's something that you spent some time on at the end of last year or the beginning of 2021 and made any changes to your UCRs.
Right now, it's looking like roughly 60% have not changed their office fees in the last 6 months.
Okay. So that's a good thing to talk to your FSC about. Okay, so we're going to take a little snack break, you guys. I found this meme and I thought it was hilarious because this stuff grosses me out. I have a mouth guard, so every time I need to get a new one and I have to have the mold put in my mouth, I'm one of those almost gaggers. So I loved this little slide and wanted to share it with you so we could take a little snack break on orthodontist mold Oreos. Okay, so now we're going to get into our second point. So why the difference matters in what you send to insurance companies, why you should send your UCRs versus what's on the PPO fee schedule. And I'm always surprised at how often we come across this. So if you are submitting your PPO fee on a claim rather than your UCR, you could be sabotaging you and your peers. So just to kind of review what we talked about before, how your UCR can affect the whole industry. If you're, and this fear of this phantom write-off adjustment number, then just know that if you're submitting your office fee, you're contributing to the problem, because again, they're expecting you to take a discount. And so if you're submitting what's on the fee schedule because you're afraid of that adjustment, or if you feel that that's what you're supposed to be doing, it's kind of surprising how often we run into that, where people are adamant, no, I'm supposed to submit what's on my fee schedule. So I'm here to set the record straight. You are supposed to be submitting what is on what your UCR is, not what's on the fee schedule, and then adjust off the difference between your UCR and what's on the fee schedule. So why the difference matters, like we talked about, low submissions can negatively affect your potential for PPO negotiations. So why should they increase your reimbursement if they're already paying you 100% of what you're asking for? And again, it just goes back to what Delta told us. They're like, it's surprising how many people will submit the fee schedule amount. So why would we raise the fees if we're paying people what they're asking? So this is really critical. And so for those of you that you know this and you're doing this correctly, this is something that's good to bring up when you are like at an ADOM chapter meeting, or if you're in a study club with other providers, making sure that other offices are doing that. Because like we talked about, anybody who's submitting the fee schedule amount is pulling the whole industry down, and they're helping insurance companies justify lower fees. So it's really important that if you're doing this correctly, that's something that you're helping your peers understand, so that especially people in your geographic area are submitting their UCR and not what's on the PPO fee schedule. Okay, so that leads us to poll question number 2. Do you always bill your office fee when you're submitting a claim? Or do you bill your PPO fee schedule, or does it vary depending on who you're sending the claim to?
It is looking like the majority always bill their
Oh,
office.
I'm so proud of you guys. That's great. That's awesome. Great. Well, like I said, if you're one of those, or maybe you didn't want to admit that you've been doing it wrong, then like I said, this is really a call to action to make sure that your peers are doing that as well, so that nobody's bringing you down in your area. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll move on to the next one here. We're going to talk about what a tangled web PPO participation can be. And so there's probably a lot of you out there groaning and saying, yes, this is probably one of the most frustrating parts of anybody who has the responsibility of doing the coordination of benefits and processing claims and all of that, is PPO participation is a tangled web. So we're going to see if we can demystify it a little bit for you. And so I'm going to start with defining some vocabulary or terminology so that as I go forward, when I use certain terms, that we're all on the same page about what that means. So we use the terms leasing and networking interchangeably. So in talking and better understanding that, I need you to understand what a direct contract is. PPOs leasing contracted providers to other PPOs. So that's like a United Concordia leasing to a Sun Life. Or then there's also network umbrella companies that lease their providers to PPOs. So that's like a Dentamax, a Connection, Carrington, Zealous. Those are network umbrella companies that would lease to Sun Life, for example. So we're going to talk about direct contracts, PPOs, leasing, and umbrellas. So a direct contract is where you have credentialed with a PPO. Let's use MetLife as an example. You have signed a contract with MetLife. You filled out that long credentialing application, filled out all your office information, give them your DEA and your license and all of that, and you've agreed to be an in-network provider. And every 3 years, you re-credential with them and reattest to your standing, your license, your malpractice, all that. That's a direct contract, is when you've contracted directly with an insurance company. That relationship is organic and you've signed that contract with them. So we call that a direct contract. So if you filled out that application to MetLife and they've processed it and put you in network, that's called a direct contract. So PPO to PPO leasing. So this happens when one insurance company sits down with another insurance company and decides that they're going to lease the providers in their network to that other insurance company that maybe is struggling to get providers organically in an area, or if their fees are low, so they struggle getting doctors to get on board, or sometimes there's just areas where doctors kind of hold out with joining PPOs. And so they started this so that they could access more providers that they maybe couldn't get on a direct contract. So this is a situation where maybe you've signed a contract with an insurance company. Like I said, you filled everything out, you gave them your credentials, they gave you a fee schedule, and you're contracted with them. But then what they've done is turn around and leased you to another insurance company. So now you're in network with insurance company B, even though you never signed a contract with them. And you still send claims to them for processing, and it's still their patient, but they're going to process the claim on the fee schedule with the company that you originally contracted with. So in this instance right here, this dentist has contracted with the orange insurance company who leased them to the green insurance company. So now when they send claims to the green insurance company, even though they never signed a contract with them, they're in network and the claims get repriced at the fee schedule that they signed up with the orange insurance company. So we've seen a really big uptick in this. It used to really just be network umbrellas doing a lot of the leasing, but over the past several years, we've seen more and more and more leasing arrangements between insurance companies. And some have dropped, so they do change. Some have dropped their relationships, just completely severed them, or they've just said, as of this date, we're not going to take any more through this insurance company. But from PPO to PPO, just know that it is possible. If you've signed up with an insurance company and then all of a sudden you have claims processing in network with another insurance company on that fee schedule, it's because they've leased you out. So the difference with an umbrella network is typically not an insurance company. That's going to be like Zealous, Connection, Carrington, Dentamax. If you're in the Midwest, you have Premier Dental Group. If you're in Nevada, you have Diversified. So there's a handful of network umbrella companies out there. So they are not an insurance company. Their job is just to contract you on a fee schedule and then lease you out to the PPOs in their network. And so as you can see with insurance companies, Some of them, there's multiple ways that you can be in network. There's direct contract or through another PPO or through an umbrella network. And almost every PPO participates on this on some level, except for Delta. So we're going to talk about, is networking a good thing or a bad thing? How you can find out if you're currently being leased, and what can be done to use networking to maximize PPO reimbursement options. So networking can be tricky for even the most experienced insurance coordinator or provider to navigate. There are definitely pros and cons to participating through leasing and networking. So the cons are the relationships can change or the hierarchy can change. So I'll use Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, for example. You can't contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. They only operate through a conglomerate called Dental Network of America. And it's about 5 of you states out there have your Blue Cross Blue Shield through them. So since you can't directly contract, you can with DNOA, but not with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. And so what they do is they've set up lots of different networking options so that you can see Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas all over the country. And so there are literally about 10 different ways that you can be in network. And so they have a hierarchy in place when they have multiple PPOs that they might lease from. So there's definitely a hierarchy. It's typically based on fees. Obviously, they're going to set their hierarchy pointed toward lower fees first. But those relationships can change, hierarchies can change, and you can be shifted, without any notification that they're shifting your participation. So some reps, particularly provider relations that anymore a lot of times is outsourced, they don't really understand the big picture. So, and it's not necessarily their fault. They're just answering the phone. And so they're trying to answer your questions, but honestly, anything to do with networking and leasing is difficult for them to really educate just kind of the frontline phone answerers on. So it's common to get incorrect or inadequate information. So you want to be careful on anything that you rely on just coming out of, like say provider relations. Also, participation isn't always straightforward. And what can be really confusing is if you're one of those offices that has multiple providers, multiple specialties, especially, all your providers could be participating differently. So one could be in network on a direct contract, one might be in network under an umbrella, and one might be under another PPO. And so it can become a nightmare for your front desk to keep track of, okay, this provider is going to process under this PPO if I bill it under this provider, and it's going to be under a different fee schedule and a different PPO with another provider. So those are some of the cons, especially if you're doing this on your own. These are some big cons that can cause a lot of frustration. However, there are some pros to networking, and especially when you work with a third party like us that understands it on a high level, there can be some definite benefits. So number one is you have fewer contracts, and the biggest one of all can be higher reimbursements. So you can't think of it logically, like why would they pay me more through a leasing arrangement? Why don't they just pay me more under a direct contract? Because if they're willing to pay me the larger amount through a networking situation, plus the leasing fee, why wouldn't they just pay me that as a direct provider? So, but you have to understand this is set up for them to access as many providers as possible. So where we come in is help you see the benefits of networking and contracting and how maybe moving around some participation can work for you with higher reimbursements. So when we're talking about pros and cons, you also need to keep in mind that in some situations, you don't have a choice. There are some states where your Blue Cross Blue Shield is only through United Concordia. There are some states where you are principal only through a network or something like that in Nevada. So keep in mind that, in evaluating pros and cons, there are also some instances where your only option is through a leasing. Okay, so understanding your current in-network participation is key to understanding if you are direct or in-network through leasing. So a really easy way to figure that out, if you're not sure, is to look at an EOB. It'll tell you if a claim is being repriced, meaning in-network, and on what fee schedule. So let's say you have an EOB from Aetna, and you're not sure if you are in network, out of network, what the deal is. So first of all, you can see it'll say on the EOB that in network or out of network. And if it's in network, it's going to say somewhere on there, this is according to your Aetna contract, or it might say this is according to your Zealous contract. If you're in network with Aetna under Zealous, it's going to say on the EOB which company you're being processed through. So the EOB is a great way. You can call provider relations, and 9 times out of 10, you'll get the correct answer. But sometimes if you don't word it just right, they may misunderstand what you're asking and give you incorrect information. But your EOBs are a really great place to start in determining whether A, they're repricing that claim, discounting it, meaning you're in network, and then how. Is it a direct contract? So if it's an Aetna EOB, is it saying it's processing on your Aetna contract, or is it saying it's processing under something else? Okay, so what can be done so that networking can be used to benefit you instead of hurt you? So first of all, hire Unitas. We can verify exactly how each provider is participating, including plan levels. So Cigna, for example, they have plan levels, Advantage and DPPO. So it's important not only to understand if you're a direct contract, if you're in network through another PPO, if you're in network under an umbrella, but also which patients you're in network with. So we'll find that out, what fee schedule you're getting paid on, and then discover if there's any opportunities to optimize how you're participating. So we negotiate direct contracts, but we also explore options to change how your providers participate. So, insurance participation isn't all bad. There is actually a lot of great benefits to being in network with PPOs. And it's just knowing what your options are and utilizing those to work for you. So we can help you opt out of what you don't want and steer you towards the best option that's for you. And it varies from state to state. One state might have some great network opportunities that aren't available in the state next door, or it's how your Blue Cross Blue Shield is accessed, or a number of different things. But we've got extensive experience in every single state, so we know what your options are or are not, that aren't necessarily made clear by the leasing companies. So now we're going to do poll question number 3. Was this something that you were kind of already aware of, or was this something that was new to you in understanding how PPOs can lease you out once you contract with them?
This one is seesawing a little bit back and forth, but it looks like roughly, again, 60% said yes, they are, or they do know.
All right, so I think from here, this is where I think we are going to do the Q&A, Adam, and then talk about how you can schedule a complimentary consultation with Unitas to see if your practice is a good fit for us. We're not going to bring you on if we don't think we can help you. So we have a few different products. PPO management is our main product for existing practices. We also love helping new practices get started. There's definitely a strategy for going in network. And our Practice Start product is excellent in helping doctors get started, on the highest fee schedule you can right out the chute, instead of moving around how you come to us. And then we have a product if you're a heavy fee for service practice and you want to look at your options for going in network, then we have a flashlight product that just shows you what those options are. It's no obligation to sign up. We're not pushing PPOs or anything like that. We just want you to know if that's something you're considering, that there is definitely a strategy for going in network and understanding what you get when you sign up. So I'll give it back to you, Adam, so that you can see if there's any questions for me.
See if there's any questions. There is tons of questions. So thank you everyone for submitting. While we are on the topic of a consultation, we did have one person ask, how long is a typical consultation and would the doctor need to be available for the consultation?
So we ask you to set aside about 30 minutes and you pick the time that is going to work best for you. If that's on a lunch break or if you're closed Friday afternoon, something like that. It's a 30-minute time window. Some of them wrap up a little bit quicker. Some go longer if you have more questions. And it's definitely ideal if the doctor's on the phone because if we've got you convinced and you're excited about this and because you intimately understand your insurance situations and you're identifying everything we're saying and say, oh yes, that's something that could totally help us. Sometimes it becomes daunting for you to then have to relay that back to the doctor who's maybe a little skeptical because he's had lots of things pitched or she's had lots of promises made that sounded really great but maybe needed some more information for convincing. So it is definitely ideal to have your insurance coordinator and at least one of the providers, owners on that call so that we can kind of cover all the bases and get everybody on the same page, understanding exactly what we can do for you. That's a great question. Thanks.
Is there any way to know you are being leased to a different insurance company?
Yes. So your first clue is on the EOB. That's going to tell you whether you are processing. So like the Aetna example that I gave, if you send a claim to Aetna, when it comes back, it's going to tell you on the EOB that it's processed either on your Aetna contract, or let's say you see Aetna under Sun Life, then it's going to say this is processed under your Sun Life contract. So that's a great indication of how you're participating, or you can call. Like I said, sometimes it can get a little tricky. They're getting a lot better, but you just need to make sure that you word it, not just am I in network, but are we in network on a direct contract, or do you show that I'm in network under something else? And just make sure that you're asking the question deep enough so that they're not just going to say, yeah, you're in network, because that's not really what you're asking. You want to know, okay, yeah, I'm in network, but how am I in network? Am I a direct contract, or am I in network through United Concordia, or am I in network through Zealous, something like that. So hopefully that clarified that.
With regard to leasing contracts, what can I do to increase reimbursement?
So honestly, it's really not something that you can do on your own. That's something where you do need to hire a company like Unitas. And I'm not saying that as a sales pitch or anything, as much as we know how to help you, and doing it on your own, you can probably do more harm than good, because there are so many different leasing options out there that, and even going out of network, we have some offices that say, I hate XYZ insurance company and I want to go out of network. I don't care what they pay. They're a pain to work with. My staff hates them. Patients are paying, whatever the reason is, and they want to go out of network. Then you will have to understand you may term that contract, but you might be in network with something else that PPO leases from. So that doesn't solve any of your problems. You've just been moved over to another option. So while we went over a lot of cons in the networking and leasing, there are definitely benefits with having higher reimbursement options sometimes through moving that around. But really, it's hard for you to do that on your own, just because trying to move something to something else might work for you, but maybe you weren't aware that there was another option that they picked you up under, because you didn't know that, like let's say you're trying to dump XYZ insurance company, but they lease from 3 companies that you have contracts with. So you could just move something to something that's lower instead of your goal to get higher. So I know that's kind of a complicated answer to the question, but really it's something that you have to have someone help you through, because you have to be aware of, if you try to move something here, that it actually gets moved there, and what that process looks like, because it can get a little messy. There might be some time out of network. You might not pick up all the patients. Some of them might be out of network under a leasing. And so again, this is going back to, and this is not, the insurance companies do the best they can. The network umbrellas do the best they can in giving a client list or trying to explain it. But because they only deal with their end of it, it becomes really limited in how they can educate you on how that leasing can impact you. So unfortunately, it's just something that you have to get help with, honestly.
All right, thank you. We've got kind of a long one here.
Okay.
How do we know when we are in an umbrella network and what fee schedules to use? We have used a provider but get a different fee schedule every time. We're not notified on what fee schedule, and it's confusing to the providers. Is this something that can be avoided?
So that's a good question. And actually that's why a lot of offices sign up with us, because they're like, and when you have multiple providers especially, it can get really confusing because you're trying to predict, especially on treatment plans, what fee schedule that everything's going to process on. So what you can do, like this is what we do if you come on service with us. We literally call every umbrella network and every PPO and we ask, is this client in network? And if they are, how? So if the EOBs is kind of a daunting thing to go through, then you can certainly just call and ask if you're in network and get your fee schedule. Anymore, most of them have a provider portal that you can access and download your fee schedule through there, which is a good idea because we're in a new year and there's some new ADA codes and some of them do like small incremental increases on fee schedules. So it's a good idea to do that anyway, but that is something that we do as part of our service. And then we map out for you exactly how you're participating. So we're going to start with Aetna, Emeritus, like just alphabetical order. We're going to go through all the major PPOs and all the insurance companies and say, this is what this doctor's in network with, and this is how. And this is what patients you're in network with, and which ones you're out of network with. And this is the discount you're taking by being in network with this PPO. And so it can get really confusing and really frustrating and really time consuming for you. So that's why, trying to tighten it up and clean it up to the best of your ability, you can. Like I said, it's hard to do it on your own. And that's not even the best office manager, or insurance coordinator, or doctor that's trying to figure this out. It can just be really hard to navigate on your own because there are so many options out there for them to choose from.
Is it better to contract directly with the insurance companies if the umbrella fee schedules are low?
Well, yeah, I mean, if that's your objective in all of this is to get the highest fee that you can for the work that you're doing. So if you are direct with something, then you want to stay direct and not be under a network umbrella if you've got a higher fee direct, which certainly happens. I mean, there's no one size fits all for practices. You come to us in all different shapes and sizes, fee schedules. Some people have never negotiated their fee schedules and they've been on the same fee schedule for 10 years and they're getting 625 for a crown and they didn't know that they had any choice, in the matter. And so, definitely um, it can be to your benefit, but it's a practice by practice situation based on what the insurance companies are willing to give you, what you've been on, how long you've been open, all kinds of different things. So just to say, is it better to be one or the other? We went over some of those pros and cons, but it really just is a PPO by PPO, case by case basis for your practice. And if you're focusing on fee, which that's what we do, our focus is on fee, then obviously you want to be participating under the highest option available to you. So for you, that might be a direct contract or it might be through something else.
How is it legal to not tell a provider that they are in network?
They do tell you though on the contract. So when you sign up with a PPO in the contract, it will say in there that they are able to lease you out. After that, sometimes when new relationships change, then they'll send a letter out to everyone notifying you of the change, whether it applies to you or not. So January of last year, Aetna entered into a leasing arrangement with Emeritus. So what they did is they sent letters out to everyone saying, great news, if you're with Aetna, then we've also partnered with Emeritus. So now you can be in network under the Aetna contract. But that only applies in some situations if you're out of network and they're just picking you up to add you. But generally speaking, minus a couple instances, if you have a direct contract with a PPO, that is going to be primary to any leasing. So it's legal in a sense that it's written in the contract that they're allowed to do that. And almost every company allows you to do some opt-outs. So what I mean by that is if you sign a contract with XYZ Insurance, you can say, I want to opt out of any leasing and I don't give my permission for you to lease me out. The problem becomes when they maybe form a new relationship. They don't just like flip a switch and say, oh, okay, we're not allowed to lease them out. It's just whoever they're leasing to at the time you opt out. So it's something you kind of need to keep on top of. So if they add a new relationship, then that there might be potential for you to be leased, because a lot of them require that you name by PPO, I don't want to be leased to this, I don't want to be leased to this, and I don't want to be leased to this. So because it's in the generic contract and they try and do some blanket communication, but it's not something that they notify you of. Also, how it works is, let's say a network umbrella contracts a dentist, they just blast that information out to the PPOs in their network. And then it's up to the receiving network to add that doctor in. And it's not like the mothership company tracks who's put that provider in network. So that's why it can be really confusing when you're calling the different companies, because they just have their, little world that they have access to, and they don't know what the other company is accessing. So I know that's probably a confusing answer, but it's legal because it's in the contract.
How do you approach insurance companies to request an increase in fee schedule?
It really depends on the PPO anymore. Now that PPO negotiations is a thing, it depends on the process. Some of them have a email address that you have to send a request to. Some have a form. Some companies have reps specific to your area that you're supposed to work with. So it really depends on the insurance company and the network umbrella, what process they've set up to begin negotiations.
How do you negotiate with Delta PPO when they make it extremely difficult to get a hold of and they don't seem to be willing to negotiate?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've been doing this since 2012, and I've never seen Delta deviate from their standard fee schedules. Premier is different in every state. In some states, your Premier fee is based on your UCR, and you can do a fee filing with them. But for the most part, they have very strict standard fee schedules, and I've never seen them budge from that. That's not to say it doesn't happen. I'll never say never, because this is insurance companies we're talking about, but I've never seen it happen, unfortunately. And I feel your pain, because we get that from a lot of people that are Delta heavy, that wish there was something they could do about the Delta fees. So our advice there is just try and diversify if you can. So, if a practice strategy is I'm only going to take Delta because I kind of have to, then maybe that's not the right answer for your practice. Maybe if we can get you really great reimbursements with a few PPOs, it's worth maybe going and network on higher reimbursing plans to try and diversify out away from Delta if you have that patient base in your area. So I think you probably have everyone on this webinar wondering that question and wishing that there was a better answer, but unfortunately there isn't one.
Do you negotiate Cigna PPO fees?
Cigna has been known to negotiate. Cigna also networks from some network umbrellas. So there are options for participation with Cigna.
What is a typical increase percentage in fees Unitas negotiates with PPOs?
So that's a great question. And it's one we get almost every consultation. And the answer is kind of generic. It's if I asked everyone on this webinar what you got on your tax return last year, it would vary significantly depending on a lot of factors. So it really depends. If you come to us and you haven't ever negotiated and you've been on a fee schedule for 8 years or 5 years or whatever, there's generally room for improvement. If you had an insurance company come to you begging you to come on and giving you a rock star fee schedule because they really wanted you in network, and so you're already on the highest fee schedule in the area, then there may not be a lot of room for negotiations. On average, the increase we see, whether it be through negotiations or optimization, which again, that's shifting how you're participating. You're still in network. It's just how you're in network changes, is about 8 to 10%.
How often should we try to request a fee schedule increase?
So the PPOs that negotiate will typically do a fee review every 24 months. So at a minimum, you should be asking every 24 months. I don't think it hurts to ask every year. All they can say is you're not eligible, or come back to us on this date or whatever. But for the most part, for the PPOs that negotiate, they will consider a fee review every 2 years.
Great. And we've got a clarification question here. Just want to make sure I followed the presentation correctly. When submitting for reimbursement to insurance, you submit the UCR even though you know the reimbursement is the PPO fee?
Exactly. And then you adjust off the difference. So if your UCR is $100, but your fee schedule is for $70, so you're getting paid $70, then that $30 is an adjustment that you take off. So that's why it's important to have your practice management software updated too, with your correct UCRs and your current fee schedules.
What are the highest paying PPOs for FFS practices like a Delta Premier?
That's going to vary by state and by practice, because sometimes, and specialty, honestly. So sometimes specialists have higher fee schedule options, or they may have different networking options depending on how they view that specialist. Like orthodontics in particular, they view that differently. So some networking is available and some isn't. So it really just depends on a lot of different things. It depends how bad they want you. If you're a fee-for-service practice that's been around for a long time and you generate a lot of claims out of that office, or if you have patients that are calling them saying, we really want this doctor in network, it frustrates us because we love this provider, but they're not in network. They really respond to that when they have patients that are asking. So really, it's a lot of factors that come into play, how bad they want that fee-for-service provider. But where we come in is also showing you maybe a direct is good, but maybe we can get you something better through a leasing situation. So if you're considering going in network, then let's figure out what that highest option is.
You touched on this a little earlier in the Q&A, but are there any insurance companies that are typically better at negotiating fees?
I'm not going to call out any insurance companies because I think, other than Delta, because that's just Delta is what it is. Every other insurance company has had some or limited history of negotiating, depending on the circumstance. Sometimes it takes a provider actually terming and being kind of fed up and saying, fine, I'm not going to take these low fees, for them to say, okay, here's a little bit more. So there's really no blanket answer to that other than Delta. I've never seen it. There are some I've rarely seen, but for the most part, most PPOs either will negotiate or, like I said, there's options in how you can participate.
Great. We've got 5 minutes left. I'd like to go a little over if you've got some time. We've still questions keep coming in. We've got 30 to go. But is there a support or contact email address for Unitas that we can post in the chat for people to email if we don't get through their questions?
info@unitasdental.com.
Great. Thank you. All right, let's keep rolling. How do you go about coming up with office fees as a startup?
As a startup, so it depends. But like I said, Henry Schein has a great source in the data that you have. We also purchase data, and then just because of the sheer volume of practices that we represent, we've got a good idea of where we recommend you set your fees. If you sign up with us on our Practice Start service, the very first thing we do is send you a report called a target fee report, where we recommend you set your fees that are going to be a nice healthy fee for the area, probably a little bit high, but definitely in a range that's going to help us go into negotiations for fee schedules for that new practice.
How can we tell which patients are under which fee schedules?
So the EOB is probably the easiest way Of course, that's after the fact. That's after you process a claim is how you can see. But you can call, and sometimes the information is available in the portal that you log into, depending on how the PPO has set that up. If you put in the patient information, sometimes it will tell you. But for the most part, unfortunately, you're going to have to call if you want to know ahead of time, or if you've already processed a claim, it should be on the EOB.
Is there a way you can contest claims denied if suddenly a practice is dropped from a leasing agreement?
Um, you would need to do some digging as to why you got dropped. Sometimes relationships just end. And so they try to be good about giving you notice of that when a relationship is coming to an end, because the PPO that is going to lose you is really good about trying to recruit you back on. But I don't, you need to do some exploring as to why that relationship ended. Is it just a glitch? I mean, honestly, 9 times out of 10, that's it. Is just, you're dealing with these gigantic insurance companies that are changing their systems over or merging with this or doing that. So, errors are very common. We spend a lot of our time helping offices fix different kind of errors and trying to catch those on improperly paid claims. But if you've fallen out of network for whatever reason, then you just need to do some digging and find out why. Is it just a mistake? Did a relationship end, or what the deal is? But definitely you need to get some more information so that you can determine what the resolution is.
If we enroll with Unitas, will you let the office or provider know how they will be reimbursed or which fee schedule to follow?
Absolutely. That's the core of what we do, especially in our early analysis, is we're going to verify how the providers are participating and collect your fee schedules. And then we also get a production summary from you, so we know which codes are most important to you. And then all of our reports come to you focused on your top grossing codes. And so you're going to get a very comprehensive report showing this is the overall discount you're taking with Aetna. This is the overall discount you're taking with Emeritus, the overall discount with Blue Cross Blue Shield, based on those fee schedules. And then we also break it down by PPO. So on the 120, this is how much of a discount you're taking with Aetna. 140, this is the discount you're taking. So we break it down in reports so that you can see really clearly what discount you're taking by being in network with each of the PPOs and how you're in network.
Is there a way to find out the list of insurances that go through an umbrella company?
Yeah, so you can contact the umbrella company and say, can you send me your current client list? So the little caveat there is they're comprehensive in a lot of the PPOs and then the TPAs that they list. So there's a lot of third parties that go through these umbrella companies too that might be listed. So like Lincoln Financial is one. We see that funnel a lot through network umbrellas, or Solstice or something like that. These really small, teeny ones that funnel through something else. So in order to get that client list connection, I'm pretty sure you can go to their website and download it. Everybody else, it can be pretty state specific. So you would just need to call provider relations and say, like if you're in network with Zealous, say, please send me a client list. And that will give you a list of everything that doesn't mean that they do fall under you. It's a list of what could fall under that Zealous contract.
If you have multiple associate doctors who work in the same office, do you have to negotiate fee schedules for the office or for each individual doctor?
So it depends how you're contracted. If everybody's contracted the same, like everybody's on the same Cigna fee schedule, then that's really clear cut. Obviously, we're negotiating the Cigna fee schedule that affects all those providers. But if we have one that's direct and one that's in network through Zealous and one that's out of network, then we're going to try and figure out what the goals are for that practice as far as participation goes and determine what you want to do as far as your option for being in network or out of network. But yeah, associates can be participating differently. And so our goal is let's get everybody the same and try and figure what the best same is for all of the providers. Because especially when it comes to networking, that's where, for whatever reason, let's say you've got 3 doctors, Sometimes 2 flow really easily to something else, but there's a glitch with number 3. So when it comes to networking, typically we have to represent each doctor and keep tabs on each doctor's status, because when it comes to participation, that's by provider. When it comes to fee schedule, typically everybody in an office, now there are some obviously anomalies to that, but typically everyone in an office is on the same Cigna fee schedule or the same Aetna fee schedule or the same MetLife fee schedule. Where it may vary is if you have specialists. Some PPOs do have separate fee schedules for specialists.
Great. We are at the 1 hour, but I'd like to squeeze in a couple more.
No problem.
Can the provider relations rep tell us who and or how we are in network with them?
Yes, typically they can. Again, you just need to make sure you word it correctly. Don't call and say, am I in network? You can start there and say, do you show me as an in-network provider? And then if they say yes, just say, okay, do you show that we're directly contracted, or do you show that we're in network through something else? And then if the answer sounds a little skeptical, or maybe doesn't match up to your EOBs and you have a question, then call back. We've been known to do that a few times. It's like, okay, I'm not sure about that answer, so I'm going to call back and get someone else, see if I get the same answer. Sometimes it's 3 calls and let's see what the best 2 out of 3 is on there. But websites are also a good idea to see if you're participating. In most cases, if you are in network with a PPO, you're going to be listed on their provider website. So that's always a good way to search too. And it's part of what we do too. We do a website audit to make sure that you're on there and that your information is correct. Because that's one of the perks of being in network with a PPO, is that you're getting that marketing, you're showing up on their website as an in-network provider. So it's really important that you're on there and that your information is correct.
We accept state insurance at our practice, and it negatively affects our collection percentage because of how low their fees are. If we were to bill out our contracted fee with them, would it cause the same issue with PPOs where they will not increase reimbursement?
So with those plans, they probably don't care what your UCR is, honestly. Same with union plans. Those are pretty standardized plans where they're kind of like Delta, take us or leave us kind of thing. So I would still bill out your UCR, because yes, they need to understand this is your cost of doing business. So even though there's some heartburn over how much you're losing being in network with them, then but by the same token, if you're getting paid so low that you're actually losing money treating those patients, it might be something where you want to really consider being in network. We're finding too, in an area where a plan is so low and a lot of doctors won't participate, then that's just going to drive more low paying patients to your practice because you take their garbage. And so, they're like, well, this is my only option. And so then you end up filling up with patients on these lower plans. So, it can be really scary to think about going out of network, but here's what we say for practices that, want to dip their toe in going out of network, is try it. If it's detrimental, you can always sign back up. But you might be surprised on how okay you do being out of network with certain plans. But it also comes down to diversifying and trying to diversify your patient base so you're not dependent on a certain plan.
Great. All right. Well, we are out of time. So thank you everyone for all of the questions tonight. We truly do appreciate the engagement. There are still a number of questions we have not answered. So please feel free to email info@unitasdental.com to get your questions answered. Christi, I want to thank you specifically for your time. We certainly threw a lot of questions at you. So thank you for answering all of them and providing your knowledge.
You were great questions.
Additionally, if anyone is interested in attending future Henry Schein webinars, visit henryscheindental.com/webinars for upcoming learning opportunities. I know we'll have various webinars highlighting Unitas Dental throughout the year, so stay tuned for those. As a thank you for attending tonight, everyone will receive the recording of tonight's webinar via email later this week. Thank you all for joining us again, and we look forward to seeing you back here soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it.
No problem.